Good evening and welcome to State of Business on our television. This is Madhusha Palakumar. Let's take a look at tonight's headlines first. President Sirisena hands over Lake Crescent residencies to the public. Sri Lanka Economic Summit 2018 kicks off in Colombo today.
We have gained from the original Indo-Lanka Free Trade Agreement more than India has.
Now the stories in detail. President Maithripala Sirisena says the present government has been able to make the program of providing safe housing with all basic facilities to every family in the country as a result of the housing policy which is being implemented with a clear national plan. He made these remarks participating in the ceremony to vest the Lake Crescent residencies in Mandavila, Mullairiyawa to the public last evening. This housing project comprises of 500 housing units and it was constructed under the Urban Regeneration Program of the Urban Development Authority under the guidance of the Ministry of Megapolis and Western Development. Professionals, administrative officials, journalists and technology officers who work in the private and public sectors in the country's main cities and semi-urban areas but are unable to afford housing in their work area are the target groups of this project. It is significant that bank loan facilities are also arranged to facilitate purchasing of these houses. The 5-story housing complex is located in a 5-acre plot of land and the houses are equipped with modern facilities including drinking water, electricity, wide roads and water purification centres. Minister Patali Champika Ranavaka, Colombo District Member of Parliament S.M. Marikar, Chairman of Kolonava Divisional Secretariat Prasanna Solangarachi and others were present at this occasion. The State Literary Awards Ceremony 2018, an occasion to give due accolades to the literati who enriched the field of literature in Sri Lanka with their creations, was held under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena at the BMICH recently. Many authors received awards at this ceremony for their contribution towards the advancement of literature in 2017. Professor K. N. O. Dharmadasa, M. Ponnampalam and Professor Gananath Obesekara were presented with the Sahitya Ratna Lifetime Award for their invaluable service towards the advancement of the literature field in Sri Lanka in Sinhala, Tamil and English languages by the President. The award ceremony organized by the State Literary Advisory Board, Art Council of Sri Lanka, Ministry of Cultural Affairs and Ministry of Higher Education was held for the 61st time. The literary books which were honoured with awards were also presented to the President. The Sri Lanka Economic Summit 2018, organised by the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, was inaugurated in Colombo this morning under the theme On the Fast Track to Turnaround. Delivering a speech during the first session of the summit, State Minister of Finance and Mass Media Eran Wickramaratne noted that Sri Lanka has been leveraging from the Indo-Lanka Free Trade Agreement more than India, despite claims that India has benefited more from the FTA merely by citing the size of the overall bilateral trade deficit. At the 2018 summit, the emphasis is on shaping a turnaround for the Sri Lankan economy while delving deep into areas such as trade, investment and services. The focus is also on learning from successful companies and steering bureaucracy to work more effectively, thus meeting emerging challenges.
Our 21 million market won't make a huge difference to raise our living standards. We have to access the larger market and we have to be the gateway to the South Asian market. We have undertaken tax reforms. I won't go into the details, but we will be removing para-tariffs over the next period, right? And I know that that will mean competition for lots of us here, from the airport development levy to the cessors, right? We are going in that direction. We are, as the presenters showed and talked about, including the keynote speaker today, the Inland Revenue Bill, despite all its hiccups in implementation, and I admit that there are hiccups in implementation, it's certainly moving Sri Lanka to a more rules-based system, taking discretion away from politicians and from bureaucrats. The increasing the ease of doing business, much to be done. I accept the criticisms that were made today. Much needs to be done. We have a single window that we have basically created to facilitate online systems of some regulatory agencies. We are going in the right direction. Free trade agreements are not going to immediately increase your exports, but it is going in the direction of reform. You know that we have the Indo-Lanka Free Trade Agreement. 10 rounds of discussions have been held. More than 4,000 product lines are now duty-free into India. We have gained from the original Indo-Lanka Free Trade Agreement more than India has, because they keep exporting outside the agreement, whether we had the agreement or not. We have been increasing our exports all the time. There's so much misinformation about these, or the bad experience of a few people sometimes overshadow the larger picture for the country. And therefore, EDCA is going to be actually expanding the scope.
Addressing the gathering during the second session of the Economic Summit 2018, State Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs Dr. Harsha D. Silva noted that Sri Lanka's traditional export basket requires diversification in order to thrive among the global network. He also stressed upon the importance of removing trade barriers and making Sri Lanka conducive for foreign direct investments.
The traditional exports that we still continue to talk about is not going to help us win this battle, achieve the turnaround that we require. We need diversification and complexity. We are going to engage in greater trade and investment agreements. There are people who are even criticizing the Singapore FTA. And I tell those people, please don't be misled by cheap political nonsense. We need the investments to come in. We need to lower the border taxes so that the production networks can become a reality in this country. We need to lower the barriers that we have erected at the borders. If we erect a barrier at the border, it becomes less conducive to become a part of the network. It will go to another country that has lower barriers at the border. The new immigration regulations are coming. The cabinet has approved it. We will have visas that will help companies employ specialists and others that will help transfer technology either within FTAs or outside FTAs.
The second session of the Sri Lanka Economic Summit focused on key topics including focus on thrust areas that will lead to a fast track, and exploring how the future is shaping, what are the new changes, and how can Sri Lanka plug in and not fall behind. The panel for the second discussion was moderated by Peter D. Almeida, Chief Executive Officer of Enable Private Limited.
Diversification has to happen, and for that diversification to happen effectively, the SMEs have to come and play their part. There are also a lot of opportunities within this country, but we need to start identifying and understanding who our consumer is, who the global consumer is, and then ensure that our product is taken to a point that it makes sense to the global consumer, that it makes sense that it can go to a global market and stand out.
Focus on the kind of IT industry, and right now it's about 1.2 billion. Had a compounded annual growth rate of about 28% year on year. Our target is to reach 5 billion by 2022, which means just in the next year, we have to reach about 1.8 billion. We need to go from, about 7,000 graduates that we lost in 2012. We had 7,000 IT graduates coming out. We need to employ about 16,000 people in the industry. So that there's, I think, there's a requirement. There's undersupply of good people.
Let's take a look at more news after this short break. Welcome back. The 5th consecutive Tourism Leaders Summit will be held on 4th and 5th of October this year. The summit is being organized by the Alumni Association of Tourism Economics and Hospitality Management together with the students of the tourism study programs of the Department of Economics of the University of Colombo. The theme of the summit this year is Integration of Global Value Chains for Sustainable Tourism Development in Sri Lanka, Inclusiveness, Competition and Innovation. Speaking at the press conference held last evening, Minister of Tourism Development and Christian Religious Affairs, John Amarathunga, expressed the following views.
I am confident the Tourism Leaders Summit and International Research Symposium of 2018 will provide a constructive dialogue on the required policy and controls to ensure sustainable tourism development in Sri Lanka, which will prepare the industry for the anticipated doubling of arrival of numbers over the next few years. While we work towards the goal of making tourism the leading revenue generation of the country, we must also be conscious of not killing the goose that lays the golden egg process. We must manage our tourism resources in such a way that economics, social and ethnic needs can be fulfilled while maintaining the cultural integrity. It's very important. Ecological processes, biological diversity and life support system that sustain our tourism assets. Appropriate policies and business practices will lead to sustainable tourism that will contribute effectively to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Tourism is now one of our main pillars of our economy, and its position will be further consolidated with the target that we have set for the industry, which is namely 4 million tourists, 600,000 direct employees, and $7 billion in revenue by 2020. This is our final objective for the next couple of years.
Speaking further, Minister John Amartunga stated that development of sustainable tourism is the key to the long-term success of the industry and that preservation of natural and cultural assets are also a key priority of the government.
Development of sustainable tourism is the key to the long-term success of the industry. The industry needs the best brains in the country to map out the route to sustainability while meeting the needs of the tourists, stakeholders, and the host communities alike. We will ensure inclusive economic growth, satisfied local communities, and most importantly, the preservation of cultural and the natural assets. We need to focus on engaging the local communities in conservative promotion and sustainable development through capacity building.
Let's take a look at how stocks performed after this short break. Welcome back. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a mixed note today. The all-share price index gained 1.68 points to close at 6,060.68 and the S&P SL20 dropped 3.26 points to close at 3,167.42. The turnover was 1.6 billion rupees and 51 million shares were traded. Next is Forex rates. With that, we are wrapping up State of Business for the day. We'll meet you tomorrow with more news at the same time. Until then, take care. Good night.